Hey, y'all, I'm Bud Elliott, and this is Cover 3 College Football Summer School. We've done our research on the teams, and now we're bringing on the top team experts from the 24/7 Sports Network to help us fill in the blanks. Please follow us on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast. That's Cover 3 Podcast. Hey, guys, I'm Bud Elliott, and welcome back in to College Football Summer School, a production of the Cover 3 Podcast. And today, we're going to talk a little Oregon State with the help of Carter Bahns, beat writer for BeaverBlitz. And last year, we had Carter on for our 24/7 Sports Around the Clock series. And guys, I got to tell you, Carter, he was on it. He's like, this Oregon State team, they can make the leap. They can go bowling. Maybe they can go bowling plus one or two. And guys, he knows what he's talking about. So Carter, man, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just wrapped up spring ball here a couple of weeks ago. So football's still fresh in my mind, even though we're fully diving into the offseason here.
No doubt about it. So Oregon State played as a top 50 level team in most of the power ratings for the first time in quite some time. Just a tremendous job by that coaching staff there to continue to kind of get guys to fit their system and develop them up. And mood got to be pretty happy right now, I would assume.
Yeah, I think things are still kind of moving in a positive direction at Oregon State right now. News-wise, this offseason's been pretty quiet. It's not like Oregon State's brought in any big-name transfers or anything yet. I wouldn't count that out. I still think there's a lot of potential for, some big things to happen over the offseason. But mostly it's just been, kind of grinding through spring camp, a subdued spring game. There was no it wasn't a live game format. It was just kind of a glorified practice, I guess. So, like I said, the mood isn't like, people aren't like over the moon right now, but I think it's just kind of the nature of this being the off season. And once the fall rolls back around, I think fans are going to be really excited to see if this team can take the next step, and start to compete for the Pac-12 North title.
No doubt about it, which, I mean, just the fact that you just said that is a testament to how good a job the staff has done so far, I think, given where they were 4 or 5 years ago. This offense last year was dynamite. A top 20 opponent adjusted offense, put up points on most everybody. Really, really good ground game. What do we call it? Opportunistic, I guess, passing game, maybe. Take advantage of play action and multiple formations, motion, and whatnot. I want to start not negatively, but just I want to get your opinion on this. So they were in the JT Daniels sweepstakes, obviously, and JT went to West Virginia, transferring from Georgia. Chance Nolan returns, though, at quarterback. That they were going after JT, does that say something about Nolan's ceiling? What do you read into that, if you do?
I think it was more just kind of a testament to a potential lack of depth in the quarterback room. You're bringing back Chance Nolan, obviously, but Tristan Gebbia comes back after a really serious hamstring injury, so you have no idea what you're going to get out of him. Outside of that, the only other scholarship quarterback on the roster right now is a freshman in Ben Gulbranson, who's still, as far as playing experience goes, he's only played one drive in his college career, and he's coming off an injury himself. So there's really only one proven guy in that room, and it's Nolan. And so I think the coaches recognized, if we can bring in a guy who can, at the very least, create some competition, that's going to be a good thing. But obviously, if JT Daniels were to transfer to Oregon State, I think he, pretty clearly comes in as the favorite to win the job. It's unfortunate that they miss out on it because, man, I think they were in a great place to potentially land him. I actually saw him, taken in practice one day during spring camp. I know he was on campus for 2 days and by all accounts had a great visit. I think I left that situation feeling pretty confident about Oregon State's chances to land him. Obviously, they couldn't close the deal. In the days since, Oregon State fans have kind of started to raise some questions about this coaching staff's ability to close on big-time recruits and to bring in quarterbacks, because you look at the staff, and Jonathan Smith and Brian Lindgren are two of arguably the best quarterback coaches out west, but their inability to land a big-time quarterback, I think, is starting to raise some eyebrows, especially after what happened with Braden Dorman a couple of months earlier, a four-star quarterback who, by all accounts, was, a lock to come to Oregon State and then flip to Arizona at the very last minute.
For sure. That's a legit question. receiver wise, they lose Bradford, but pretty much everybody else who caught a pass for them, or at least a decent number of passes, is back. If JT had come, certainly, or Nolan or Tristan Chebbia, they got a lot of pretty good players to throw the ball to. Like, they've got to be feeling fairly good about the skill position core, right?
Yeah, and that was part of the reason that I felt, fairly confident in Oregon State's landing JT Daniels, was that it was a great landing spot for him. He comes in and he has an offensive line that was arguably one of the top 5 groups in the country last year, a stable of running backs that's always elite, and then, like you mentioned, the wide receivers. Now, the depth in the receiving core has kind of dropped off a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Zariah Beeson just entered the transfer portal and committed to Washington State. Champ Flemings, who's caught a ton of passes in his career out of the slot, just committed to Arkansas State. So two of the more experienced guys in that room have entered the transfer portal recently, but still coming back. You've got Trayshawn Harrison, Tyjon Lindsey, and a bunch of younger guys. Anthony Gould, Silas Bolden are 2 guys who really stood out to me in spring camp. Silas Bolden in particular had 2 touchdowns in the spring game, so I think he could really step up and bring something new to this offense as well. But the skill positions, for the depth that they have lost throughout the spring, I think what they bring back too is really exciting. And this Oregon State offense, to be honest, could be as good, if not better, than last year.
Staying on the offensive side for one last question there. The offensive line does lose 2 starters. Eldridge was an all Pac-12 guy. And then I'm not even going to try to pronounce the other dude's name. If you can, please.
Yeah, that's Noose Keobunam.
Keobunam. Okay, that's much simpler than I thought it was going to be. Are you projecting a drop-off here or just kind of status quo? Obviously, they were very good last year, but those are 2 pretty good guys to lose.
I think it'll be somewhat similar as far as what they're able to do. Losing those 2 guys, obviously, that's a challenge. Eldridge was a 2-time all first team Pac-12 center. And so losing kind of the cornerstone of one of the best offensive lines in the country, that's almost impossible to replace right away, unless you go to the transfer portal. But what this offensive line returns is 3 veteran starters: Brandon Kipper, Joshua Gray, Jake Levengood, and then 2 guys that saw a lot of playing time last year as well, in Marco Brewer and Taliesa Fuaga, who are 2 younger guys who kind of worked their way into the rotation and then actually both started a game or 2. So I don't see much of a drop-off with that starting group. Where the concern lies is their backups. There were a ton of injuries to the second and third team groups in the spring. And I think the coaching staff is a little bit concerned with the depth on the offensive line. If everyone stays healthy, it's going to be a great year. I see another really dominant rushing game. But if anybody goes down, there could be some struggles there.
For sure. And Deshaun Fenwick has a chance to step up, obviously, with BJ Baylor departing. And I just never worried about running backs and Jonathan Smith. I feel like they're always going to have somebody who's good, and they put him in a position to succeed.
Yeah, Fenwick's right there. I think, Trey Lowe, what he gave them last year after transferring from Washington, particularly in a third down role, he really excelled there. And I like what he brings as a receiver as well. But the one guy who has stood out in that running back room this spring, and who I think Oregon State fans are over the moon about, I know I am, is true freshman Damian Martinez, who came in from Texas. He played big school, high school football in Texas, ran for a ton of yards. He came in as an early enrollee and just kind of ran away with things. He was far and away the most productive running back that Oregon State threw out there this spring. And, it's not something that we've really seen under Jonathan Smith, having a skill position guy or really any contributor come in as a true freshman and lock up a job. But if anyone is going to come out of this committee as the featured back, as a guy who could take the lion's share of the carries, who could contend for an 1,000-yard season, Damian Martinez as a true freshman would be the guy to bet on.
All right, let's switch to the defensive side here. You called this one last year as well. Like, you didn't think it was going to be a good defense. You just thought it would be improved and not one like the absolute worst in the Power 5, which it was in 2020 and in 2019. But the top two guys at defensive tackle, at least listed as D tackle, are gone in Shad and Skelton. How big of a concern is that for you?
Huge concern. It has been the main weakness on this team for the last 4.5 years, ever since Jonathan Smith came here. A lack of depth on the defensive line, and particularly in the middle. Oregon State runs a 3-4 scheme. And as we know, if you're running a 3-4, you need a big body in the middle who can kind of, take up two guys and create some lanes for your other pass rushers. They haven't had that. And this year it's, that depth, it's razor thin. There were a couple of injuries in the spring, and what we saw is, guys are running with the first and second team. You've got outside linebackers lining up at D end to fill in some spots. And, it's a concern. It has been for the last couple of years. And I don't think they've really shown anything or done anything on the recruiting trail or via the transfer portal to alleviate my concerns there. What I will say is what this defense can do this year is make up for its personnel deficiencies schematically. Trent Bray comes in as the in his first year as the full-time defensive coordinator. He took the interim job last year after Tim Tibesar was fired after a really poor performance against Colorado on the road. And what Bray brings is a really aggressive scheme. It's one that's going to throw all sorts of blitzes at these Pac-12 offenses. It's one, you're going to see linebackers in the backfield with a ton of regularity. And early indications from spring camp are that, these players have fully bought into it. And what I saw is a defensive front seven that created all sorts of havoc for Chance Nolan, Tristan Gebbia, and Ben Branson in the backfield, which is a great sign because, to be honest, your defense should be ahead of your offense in the spring. But I hadn't seen that at Oregon State over the last 4 years. So to see that finally kind of come to fruition is, for as many concerns as I still have, it's exciting to see.
So losing the two backers, Roberts and Hughes Murray, not as nearly as big of a concern for you as the two D tackles, I assume.
No, I don't think so. Actually, I'm pretty high on the outside linebacker room.
Okay.
Andrew Chatfield comes in from Florida. He was somewhat of a role player there early on in his career, and he comes in here and I think is a lock to start on the edge. He could be an absolute difference maker there. At inside linebacker, Kyrie Fisher is stepping in for Avery Roberts, and I think could be as productive as Roberts. This defense is really catered to, putting inside linebackers in positions to make tackles on every play. The defense runs around those two guys. And Fisher has shown, every bit of playmaking ability that it takes to play that position in the Oregon State defense.
So one thing that's got me kind of excited here is you're mentioning that under the new DC, a lot more blitzing, more exotics, trying to force the issue and create pressure. Having a secondary that loses, I don't have any cross-offs on my sheet. Elijah Jones, I guess. I don't know why I crossed him off. I must have read something at some point. He may still be there. Like every single person is back.
Yeah, everyone except for Jones. He was a redshirt senior last year, okay, so he just ran out of eligibility. He wasn't even really a contributor last year, to be honest. So yeah, as far as your starters and your immediate backups go, everybody is back. The one guy that I am still kind of keeping an eye on is Alton Julian, who tore his ACL last year. Whether or not he's able to go is still kind of up in the air. But if he is, he slides in as one of the two starting safeties and a guy who I thought really broke out last year before he had that ACL injury. But what I've been saying all spring is that this secondary is the best that Jonathan Smith has had at his disposal, and it's the absolute strength of this defense. So, I think the secondary has actually been pretty solid the last couple of years. It just doesn't show because Oregon State hasn't been able to pressure the pocket. Obviously, If you're letting quarterbacks, work all day back there, that makes it makes life pretty tough on your DBs. But from what I've seen under Trent Bray at DC is, there is more pocket pressure that allows things to kind of develop more in Oregon State's favor downfield. And I think if that translates to the games, they should be able to capitalize on what I think is, like I said, the best crop of defensive backs Oregon State's had under Jonathan Smith.
No doubt about it. I mean, I don't think I'm picking this team to win the North, but if you look at the schedule, your 4 road games are at Arizona State, at Washington, at Stanford, at Utah. I mean, I don't know what Washington's going to look like. I like how they get Arizona State way late in the year when it could just be total collapse mode, potentially, given all the guys who are exiting their program as we speak today. At Stanford is not particularly intimidating to play. This could set up if things can click and they can kind of, cross fingers that they stay healthy along the interior defensive line. They could have a special run here.
Yeah, I think a top 2 finish in the Pac-12 North is within the realm of possibility here. I actually, I kind of made a bold prediction when the JT Daniels sweepstakes was at its peak. I said if Oregon State lands Daniels, this is a Pac-12 North title team. So I think that they were that close to getting over the hump. And so, without Daniels, obviously things become a little bit more difficult. You're relying on Chance Nolan to get things done on the offense. And I think, he still has a decent amount to prove there, but the pieces are there for Oregon State to win 8 or 9 games. It just, they just need a couple of breaks to go their way this year. And I look at what they did last year. They won 7 games and, to be honest, lost 2 games against Colorado and California that they should have won. This team could have very well been a 9-win team last year. And I think what they bring back compared to what they lose, this team is no worse than they were last year. So 7 wins should be the expectation. But I think fans should be optimistic about their ability to win 8 or 9.
No doubt about it. Carter Bahns, BeaverBlitz, really appreciate you joining us here on the Cover 3 College Football Podcast for our summer school edition. Man, we'll have to have you back on come fall.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a blast.
All right, that's the bell. Cover 3 College Football Summer School is over for today, but don't worry. We'll be back soon with even more episodes filling you in on the top teams in college football. Please give us those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow us on YouTube and on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast, and we'll see y'all soon.